Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Tami, the creator of the blog and this YouTube channel called Nutmeg Notebook. And this is where we share with you all about a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. Sorry that we're getting started a little bit late this morning. We've had some technical difficulties, but we have worked through them, and we are so excited to share our guest with you today. We have Dr. Ron Weiss joining us. He is a physician and a farmer. He's the founder of Ethos Farm Project, a farm-based healthcare system that connects human health to the natural world and promotes mindful, healthful ways of living. Welcome, Dr. Weiss, to our plant-based community. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Tami. It's a real honor to be with you.
So we have some mutual friends, Mark and Wanda Huberman, and I believe that's how you and I were connected. And of course, they have the Health Science magazine, and you had a wonderful article in a past issue. I believe this was fall of 2021, and it was all about food insecurity in our climate troubled times. And this was so informational. It was, of course, very timely too, because I think we all, for the first time for many of us, experienced food scarcity during the beginning of the pandemic. So I'm very excited to learn more from you today. But first, before we get into the exciting event that you have going on at the farm later this month, I would like for you to share with our viewers how you became plant-based and how long you've been plant-based.
Oh, well, it's been a very long journey. I guess the very beginning of my exposure to the plant-based whole foods world was when I was a young physician. I just finished my training. This was, I guess, maybe in 1993. And my father was diagnosed with end-stage metastatic pancreatic cancer. And he was diagnosed with not much time left to live. We took him to Sloan Kettering in New York City, and he was given that diagnosis, told there was really nothing that could be done except maybe take some chemo, which wouldn't really have helped him because he was near the end. And out of desperation, I went to the public library in town and just started pulling books off the shelves of things that seemed novel to me. You know, that was the beginning of alternative medicine. Figures like Andrew Weil were just coming on the scene. Yeah. And so I was reading about all kinds of things, and then I came across a book of testimonies of cancer patients who had survived their cancers by adopting a macrobiotic diet, which is a type of whole food plant-based diet. And so there was one particular gentleman who was like my father, and he not only survived, but he was cured of his late stage disease. I told my father about the story, and he agreed to do it. We took him to see Michio Kushi, who was the leader of the macrobiotic movement in Boston, and then he adopted a very strict macrobiotic diet, much stricter than the diet I eat today, and much more limited. It basically consisted of dark leafy greens, brown rice, maybe a few other grains like oats and buckwheat, but no wheat products, a lot of legumes, no fruits, and seaweed and tea, green tea. And so he demonstrated over 6 months of 50% reduction in his tumor masses just by doing that. And remember, he hadn't had any other treatment. So we knew that this change of diet was the reason why he improved. And his life improved immensely. All of his pains went away. went back to his law practice. He was attorney. He was running, going to the gym, and he lived another 18 months, and until 2 weeks before the end, he was still in his practice in a poverty-stricken neighborhood in Patterson, doing what he loved best, which was practicing the law. So that was an amazing experience for me, and I took off from there.
So at that time, did you adopt a plant-based lifestyle at that time?
So the interesting, interesting thing is, no, I always ate a lot of vegetables and greens and fruits always throughout my life. But although I ate it in the house with my father, when my father passed away, I because I was young and immortal, yes. I guess it didn't have the impact on me. And although I ate a lot I had a plant-forward diet, I certainly ate, fish and chicken and other cheese and other things until I read the China study. And that was when I was in my early 40s. I'm now 60 years old. I read the China study. I stayed up all night reading it, of course, by T. Colin Campbell, for several nights in a row. I closed the book and I said, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to travel the same route as my father. And I adopted a diet of whole plant food. So it took about 15 years from that original demonstration with my father's disease until I adopted it myself. So, yeah.
Well, it planted the seed, and then Dr. Campbell's book just cemented it for you.
Yeah. And I find many patients and many people I come across are like that. It may take years or sometimes different experiences from when they're first introduced to these ideas to finally adopt it. And sometimes, it's a significant life event that makes it come to fruition.
Right. And so did other members of your family decide to follow suit?
None of my siblings, not my mother, none, only me. Today, my wife and my daughter are plant-based, but no other family members.
Okay. Well, I don't feel so bad that I haven't been able to influence all of my family then either. It can be a hard sell sometimes for people.
Very, very much so. I think they really have to have a reason to do it. And I forget who is the initiator of this quote, but I really think it's very true. When you see people who are very reluctant to adopt the lifestyle, even though it's so powerful. And it is, let me see if I can get it right. The reason why, and I may be paraphrasing a little bit, the reason why people have so much difficulty with change is because they're focusing on what they have to give up instead of focusing on what they have to gain. And when I think of myself and all those years, I just, of 15 years that passed by, I saw with my own eyes that this food reduced my father's tumors. I feared giving up cheese and eating in restaurants more than I did what I had to gain, which was preventing cancer.
Yeah. I can understand that and relate to it. I think when I first adopted this lifestyle, for a while, I was kind of mourning, if you will, the foods that I was giving up. And, there's a transition period that you have to work through. But then once you experience the amazing health benefits, then you just never want to go back.
Yes. And I love that word you use, mourning. Because I had that sense too. I had a particular drug of choice, which was pizza, cheese pizza, when I made the transition. thin, like New Jersey, New York style pizza with a lot of drippy cheese, wonderful tomato sauce, a lot of olive oil on it.
Sure.
Oh, and I remember those first days after I read Colin Campbell's book. The last chapter suggested that you take a 30-day experiment or a 30-day challenge in just trying to eat plants. And I remember the first few days, I would drive by these pizza parlors late at night, just when they were about to close. And I remember thinking, oh my God, if I don't stop in one of them now, they're going to close. And I had this terrible feeling of urgency that I would miss a slice of pizza even on that night. And I started getting jittery, and I began to think, do I really want, this is the way I'm going to be for the rest of my life, never having a piece of pizza? Is this, and it gives me so much enjoyment, is this? And it became like the center of the world to me, this slice of pizza. And then, it had the power of a drug over me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that does show how addictive certain foods are, and certainly dairy, has been proven to be very addictive, and cheese is really hard for a lot of people to give up.
Absolutely. And I think I felt when you said morning, I drove past those places and I kept driving, but I did have a deep sense of, I remember feeling deprived, like I was depriving myself, and and a sense of mourning. But the good thing is the longer you keep going, and if you can put your blinders on and just plow through it, you will come out the other side. And one day I tell my patients, you could care less about a slice of pizza. The longer you go, the more insignificant these old favorites seem to become.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. So then how did you go from being a whole food plant-based physician interested in lifestyle medicine to then deciding to have a farm?
Well, I had a beautiful, like very comprehensive little medical center in a poor neighborhood in New Jersey, in Hudson County. It was a working class neighborhood, and it was a very efficient and successful primary care, multi-specialty, like an all-purpose little medical center. We even had we did everything for everyone, from little babies to super centenarians at home. We even had our own, like, an insurance plan, a primary care plan for people who had no insurance, and for undocumented immigrants, of which there were a lot in our area. So after building this for over a decade, I began to sense that a lot of or basically almost all of the chronic disease was coming from food, and that the community, and of course this was reinforced by my reading the China study, and then the other books that followed. And then I began to see it, all the diabetes and the hypertension and the coronary disease and the autoimmune diseases and the cancer and the arthritis, and the few people I could get to go plant-based, all of a sudden it was like someone waved a magic wand over them. These illnesses would retreat. So I decided to end that practice and start a new practice, which began with reconstruction of the food system for a community. And that begins with the growing of food. So closed that practice, took the proceeds, and bought a broken down 300-year-old farm about an hour from there, west in New Jersey. And that's how the farm and the practice began.
And had you ever been a gardener prior to that?
Well, all of my life, I've been growing plants, and always wanted to be a farmer since I was a young child. And in college, I majored in botany. That's what my degree was in. But I still went on to medical school. So I've always had a profound relationship with plants and growing things.
And so not only do you have a farm, but it's a regenerative organic farm.
Yes.
And I think that's a new term for a lot of people. So could you explain to us what that is? And Wanda would, she sent in a question for you, and she said she would like you to explain why regenerative farming is so critical for our planet.
Yeah. Well, I had the great pleasure of tuning in yesterday. I don't know if your listeners are aware, but the White House is holding, it's the first new conference on nutrition in 50 years. And it's a very important one to try and figure out what we can do to save ourselves as far as healthcare and farming. And so there were congressional hearings yesterday just about this topic, about regenerative agriculture. What is it? Do we need it? Should we adopt it? Of course, there were all kinds of voices. There were voices from chemical companies and conventional agriculture, and also organic regenerative voices that testified. But if I could maybe simplify it, in my view, agriculture is a mining operation. If you think about it, when we grow food, we're mining the earth. No matter what kind of technique you want to use, right? Because we are planting seeds in the ground, we're using the nutrients and the substrate of that ground to grow the plant and then to create food for us that we can then eat and nourish ourselves. It goes to reason that if you have a poor substrate from which you're growing that food from, you'll have poor food, right? If you have a lot of nutrition in that ground and a lot of complex life in that ground, you'll grow great food that is high in nutrients and beautiful colors and flavors. And so that's what the science says of what I just said, that the soil that you grow your food in makes a difference. We've known this for probably scientifically for close to over 100 years, as documented by someone who's considered the father of organic agriculture. His name is Sir Albert Howard, who wrote a great treatises on the use of compost and how food can be improved by tending to the qualities of the soil. So think about it. If you continue to grow food in soil, but you never replenish the soil, it's a mining operation. You just keep mining and mining and mining the nutrients until there's nothing left of the soil. And so, in fact, that is what has happened in America and in conventional agriculture systems around the world. Because I want to remind our viewers that less than 1% of all the food eaten in the United States is even organic or certified organic. 99% is grown conventionally. When food is grown conventionally for you to eat, basically the crop is planted in the ground. Artificial chemicals that come from natural gas are applied to the soil in general, like nitrogen that comes from petroleum products, and then generally speaking, biocides, which are other agricultural chemicals, which include fungicides, herbicides, and insecticides, are applied to that field in order to allow that plant to overcome its enemies. So it's that constant application of life-killing chemicals, right? A lot of which are also duly function as antibiotics, which then kill important bacteria in the soil that make our plants grow, that basically rob the soil of its riches. And then you harvest the crop, and then that's another that's another subtraction of riches from the land. And so you can only do this for so many generations before there's nothing left. And so it's estimated, that the USDA has been collected nutrition data for over a century on the crops that we grow in this country. And they've recognized that there's been a severe diminishment of simple nutrients in our produce, like vitamin A, vitamin C, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, sometimes up to 50% reduction over the last century. And it's thought to be because of the mining and depletion of our soils. So that's conventional agriculture. That's the system we have for feeding 99% of America. It's estimated that we probably have maybe about 60 harvests left from the soil that we have before we will not have any food at all. And that's not accounting for the vicissitudes of climate change. That's in everything well with our climate. We have about 60 harvests left. So in comes this idea of regenerative agriculture, right? So just from the name, what you kind of get the idea is, instead of taking, you come to a piece of land and you build. You build back, you regenerate the soil and the environment and everything that touches that land, from the water that flows through it, from the carbon dioxide that comes out of it and goes to our skies, to the improving the nutrition of the plants that come from it and then regenerate our own health. So everything is a program of improvement. It's on a schedule of improvement. And that's why it's called regenerative agriculture. Attached to this way of growing is there are also considerations of food justice, so that everyone and everything that this system and this way of growing touches will be justly and fairly dealt with. That the farmers growing this food will be able to afford health insurance, because now most farmers can't. That the workers in the field will not be exposed to dangerous pesticides and get cancer. And that in animal systems of agriculture, the regenerative definition is even that animals will be treated humanely. Okay, so and there's a lot to talk about there if you want to, but those are the concepts of regenerative agriculture. And so before Congress yesterday, during this congressional subcommittee, I come from this great garden state of New Jersey, and our Senator Cory Booker is in a lead position on that Senate committee, and he believes in regenerative and plant-based agriculture. So that's what was being discussed.
And what we need is the federal government to subsidize farmers so that they can afford to do that.
Yes, our agricultural subsidies today are going basically to grow commodity crops, most of which we never eat. They're corn and soybean, and most of them go to CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations, which are enormous, basically concentration camps for sentient beings, for animals, and where they spend miserable lives and then are killed to feed us, and then that gives us all of our diseases. So that's where most of our tax dollars go. And then of course we reap even more catastrophes down the line when we have to pay for our chronic diseases in the emergency room, in the hospital, in the nursing home that are caused by eating like that. Of course, some of those commodities also go to create corn syrup, other agrochemicals that also make us sick, and ethanol for our cars.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what you grow on the farm and who you sell it to.
Sure. So we grow, we're a diverse whole plant foods agriculture operation. We grow about 80 different kinds of food on this little farm. Well, it's a big farm, at least in terms of New Jersey, and our New Jersey culture. It's a 342-acre farm. About half of it is in forests and wetlands, and the other half is in cultivated fields. We are restoring the vast majority, all of the fields we are restoring, because it once grew corn and soybean, conventionally. So we're restoring that, and but now we grow on about 3 acres, and we feed the community from April through Thanksgiving, fruits and vegetables and grains and starches and potatoes and sweet potatoes and kale and melons and squashes and strawberries and blueberries and cucumbers, tomatoes. It's a diverse vegetable and fruit operation.
It sounds amazing. I want to come. Can anybody come and purchase?
Yes. So we have a doctor's farm market, where it's not just any farm market. It's a market that's open to the public. Anyone can come. You just drive off down our farm road off of Main County Road. And the reason why it's called Doctor's Farm Market is because we try to influence people coming in there. Even though the majority of the people are not plant-based who come in there, we try to shift their thinking about how these foods, they're not just plant foods or medicine, but plant foods that are grown regeneratively are extremely powerful and have sometimes up to twice the cancer fighting ability that just conventional produce has. So we educate them in this doctor's farm market and on how they can ultimately become healthy by eating plants. And so it's open every Friday and Saturday, and anyone can come. We're about an hour from New York City, an hour west of New York City in northern New Jersey.
And we have in the show notes under the video, we have links to everything so people can look it up and see where you're located, and
Thank you.
they can, yes, and they can find out how to get there. I'm just curious, does the food that you grow taste better?
Well, I'm biased. So, but you can ask our customers. I've heard comments like this, that we grow the best produce they've ever tasted, that our produce lasts twice as long as the produce they buy in the supermarket, that its colors are more vibrant, and even when they make like a vegetarian chili or soup, that the colors are retain their color. They're very bright, that the aromas fill the whole house. And all of this makes sense because regenerative farming techniques build increased, they're called phytonutrients or phytochemicals. They're the plant's molecules that give flavor, staying power, color, and cancer fighting and artery cleaning abilities. These molecules, of which there are tens of thousands, most of them we're not even aware of, we haven't identified yet, give our plants those properties. So we tell people that we're not in the business of growing fruits and vegetables and grains. We're in the business of growing soil. We grow the soil, the microbiome of the soil, and then that takes care of everything else.
Yeah, and then we eat it and it grows our gut biome. So
exactly.
It's a wonderful cycle. So talk to us, if you will, Dr. Weiss, about conventional produce versus organic. I know that in doing a road trip this summer with my husband, when we got into some rural communities, we couldn't find organic produce. And so I did use like the Dirty Dozen and the Healthy 15 list to decide what I would and would not eat that was conventionally grown. A lot of the plant-based doctors say, well, it's better to eat the vegetables, even if they're conventionally grown, than to not eat them. Can you give us your opinion about this?
Well, the question is better for whom?
Mhm.
It's better for whom? I agree. Look, plants are so powerful. You and I know that, and probably most of our listeners know that because they've had personal experience. Like I was telling you with my father, and I know you've had experiences. They're so powerful that even if they have a coating of poison on them, they can still help us.
Okay.
But do we really want to eat these medicines with a side of poison? Do we want to? It's not my preference for my health. It's not. I get it. Look, you have to eat something if you're on a road trip. And I mean, unless you want to fast for 2 weeks, it's not going to work. So sure, when still in this day and age, when you go out to eat and when you're away, it's very difficult to find food. Remember what I told you, 99% of all the food in the nation consumed is conventional, biocide laced food. So what choice in the food system do we have? We have to eat. So yeah, you do the best you can. And then when you're at home or when you have choices, always try to get food that's not inundated with biocides. So yes, your original question, it is better for us to eat even conventional vegetables than, let's say, eat organic chicken. I mean, that's a no-brainer, or organic grass-fed beef or wild-caught salmon. I mean, even if you eat these vegetables, and I think that's what these doctors are trying to tell our audience. However, the bottom line is that as a society, we have to realize that when we construct our food systems to grow food like this, and it's culturally accepted, we're robbing the future from our children, our grandchildren, and the future generations, because there's no more soil left for them. We've had a good time. We've lived on this earth. But today, I started off my career as focused on cleaning out arteries or helping people's kidneys from chronic kidney disease or autoimmune diseases. But what's becoming more important to me than the individual now is preserving the health of our planet. And so I think that I know what the science shows, and that's when food is grown conventionally, it damages our earth, causes climate change, poisons our water, poisons us, and it's not good.
Yeah, well, you're encouraging us to all think about growing our own food.
I think that would be really, really a great place to start. During World War II, there was something known as victory gardens because of the disruption of our economy and food systems by the war effort. The federal government convinced Americans to grow food in their backyard. And by 1943, 40% of all the produce consumed in the United States were grown in victory gardens in people's backyards. So that's an amazing figure. And that occurred just in a few years, 3 years, this program developed. Imagine how fast we could retool ourselves to do something like that. And even if you live in urban areas, there are community gardens, right? Yes. You can take advantage of. And today in urban areas, every urban area that I know of has a farmer's market. Usually in this farmer's market, you'll see an organic farmer coming and, support that organic farmer. Yeah.
And if you talk to them, there are some that will tell you, that they are using organic growing practices, but they can't afford to pay for getting the certification.
Exactly. And a lot of the farmers, quite frankly, they don't, I hate to say this, but they don't respect the certification to boot, because it's not good enough. It's not regenerative.
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, the certification, organic certification by the USDA now recognizes plants grown in water as organic. And, high level organic agriculture or people who grow in regeneratively in soil don't accept that. And it's because plants have spent millions of years evolving with a partnership with soil. And we don't want to disrupt that evolution.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that, because at my farmer's market, there is a vendor who has lettuce that is grown hydroponically. So we're missing something. We're going to be missing.
Remember, again, hey, what would I rather do? Eat that lettuce or eat chicken? Give me that lettuce. Would I rather eat that lettuce or get lettuce that has fungicides on it, conventionally grown? Give me the hydroponic lettuce. But
Okay.
Where is its nutrient value?
Yeah. They're having to put something in the water in order to feed it.
Yeah. I think that where I see agriculture and our food system going possibly in the short term is that our food, because of economic efficiencies for the vast number of people in our country, many vegetables and fruits will probably soon be grown in warehouses in water. They will not be grown on farms anymore. And climate change and its related weather related catastrophes, including flooding and drought, will move, I think, a lot of food production indoors.
It'll be interesting to see where this all goes moving forward. I do have a couple questions that were submitted. Yes. So Patty, and this is her question that she's asking. A lot of people who initially go whole food plant-based ask about what vitamins or supplements should they be taking.
Sure. Well, as long as you're eating a diet of whole plant foods that's diverse, really the only vitamin you need is vitamin B12, because we've more or less sanitized our food system, and it's hard to get that these days. So I would take vitamin B12 every day. I usually tell my patients, the average patient, to take 500 micrograms every day, because that works out for me and my patients. They have a good level of B12. Usually when they do that, it's somewhere in the upper hundreds, like between 600 and 800, 500 and 800. So that's about it. There are, other people who take vitamin D, but vitamin D basically does not come to us in food. It comes to us when sun shines on our skin, and our skin makes it. So that's really not a food associated vitamin, unless it's, artificially fortified. And that's about it. That's what I tell my patients. Sometimes, depending on who the patient is and what their long chain omega-3 fats are, sometimes I have them supplement with DHA EPA, which is a long chain essential 3 fat, if we cannot get their levels up high enough by eating plenty of ground flaxseed and ground chia seed.
Okay, thank you. So Kim says that she went plant-based a few years ago, and she had an ACL repair surgery. In May, she discontinued using her Humira prescription medication, and now she's starting to have knee pain. Is there something in her diet that something that she could, a food that she should be increasing or including, or that could help with that joint pain?
I'm assuming, I don't know what medical condition she has, but Humira is commonly used for rheumatoid arthritis. Does she say she has that?
She said that, well, she doesn't she doesn't say. She said that she lost a significant amount of weight and was feeling better. So went off the Humira.
Okay, so Humira is commonly used for rheumatoid arthritis, which causes joint pains. And it sounds, I'm just guessing, if that's what her problem was, and she adopted a diet of whole plant foods, and then she was able to stop the Humira because she was feeling better. Wow, she reversed rheumatoid arthritis, which is a common, that's a common finding in people who adopt high levels of plant-based whole foods diets. We see that a lot. It seems like she's saying she has a knee pain where she had the operation, right?
Yeah, well, she's saying that when she's standing for long periods of time over the last couple of weeks, that her knee pain has.
So that sounds like it may be a mechanical problem, and that it's not related to rheumatoid arthritis, because rheumatoid arthritis gives symmetrical, diffuse joint problems. It's not just that knee you had operated on. It's both knees, it's ankles, it's your back, it's your hands. So what I would say to Kim is if it's just that knee, which is post-surgical, it sounds like it may be a mechanical problem that has something to do with the post-surgical procedure and not a recurrence of her rheumatoid arthritis. And if she's getting back, because if her rheumatoid arthritis is going to reoccur, she'll get it like she had before in all of her, I'm assuming she had more than just that one knee, because as I said, rheumatoid arthritis is a diffuse condition that affects usually multiple joints. So it sounds like it's not the RA coming back. An attachment, just a little warning to people. I have had people who have improved themselves and their rheumatoid arthritis with a plant-based whole foods diet, but there are certain foods within the plant-based diet that can aggravate a particular individual's rheumatoid arthritis. And a lot of the time, nightshade vegetables, I have found that to be true with potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant are in that category. Not with everyone, most people okay, but some people with RA can aggravate them. I even had a gentleman once who had RA, and every time he ate romaine lettuce, he was aggravated. But in any event, for this particular caller, I think they should really look into it being an isolated knee problem and not an indication that they have a flare of the rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And we have a question from Tracy Reese in the live chat here, and she's asking, can eating a whole food plant-based diet reverse chronic kidney disease and allow one to get off dialysis?
Well, I would say most of the time not. Most of the time not. However, I have seen some surprises. There are, I personally know of 2 cases of patients who actually did come off dialysis when they adopted a diet of whole plant foods. Most not. But I have seen in people who are not already on dialysis that a diet of whole plant foods can stabilize their kidneys' decline so that they don't descend into the kind of failure that requires dialysis. And I would say maybe about 15% of the time I've seen that a diet of whole plant foods improves their kidney function. Sometimes dramatically, a small amount of the time. Sometimes I've seen a handful of patients where it completely restored it. So for this particular caller, if she's, I would say most of the time they find the improvements are not that dramatic. I just have to caution. However, I would definitely try it because, hey, she may be one of these people. Right. Who can improve themselves.
Let's talk about your Farm Day Festival that you have coming up on Saturday, September 24th and Sunday, September 25th.
Yes. Okay, well, we're very excited about that. This is our first annual Farm Days Festival, and we're opening up the farm to a 2-day event. It's an amazing time where we have, the leaders of the plant-based world coming. We have, one of my heroes, Dr. Colin Campbell. Well, they're all my heroes, to tell you the truth, because I stand on their shoulders. Colin Campbell, whose book got me to go plant-based. We have Dr. Michael Clapper, who is a pioneer in the plant-based world, and also in changing our healthcare system to educate a new generation of doctors in lifestyle medicine. We have Dr. Joel Furman. He's that center picture with me by the tractor. And
I love it.
He's one of the, only one guy like him. He's one of our leaders too. And we also have Gene Bauer, who is the founder of a farm sanctuary, who is the soul of the ethical plant-based ethical animal rights movement. And we also have Sailesh Rao, who is a climate plant-based activist and producer of movies like What the Health and Cowspiracy. So we're having all these keynote addresses. We are having beautiful, food that's being provided to us by the Kellen Foundation. And we have movement activities, mindful activities right here on the farm. We have farm tours. You'll get to see how we grow. How can you grow food regeneratively? It's an action-packed weekend. So I invite everyone to go to our website, ethosfarmproject.org, and you'll see a little pop-up window that comes on. Just click on it and you'll get more information.
It sounds like a wonderful event.
I don't know why it's reversed.
I don't know why it's reversed. It's yeah. Zoom's not behaving well today. What I liked when I was reading the itinerary is that you have built-in breaks where people get up and get active. They can take a tour of the farm. They can exercise.
Yes.
It's like,
it's
so great.
It's listening and then moving, and then listening, then moving, because the farm is so beautiful here. It's a National Historic Landmark. It's been preserved by the people of this town and by the state, and we want to open it up to everyone. They can really see how agriculture can be connected to nature and the community. So we want them to see everything. Yeah.
So they can come for one day if they want, or they can go for both days.
Exactly.
Okay. And then you are suggesting that people carpool because there is limited space for parking?
If they can, because we want to also save our environment. But, you know, if you have no ability to do that, we'll have a parking spot for you.
Fantastic. Well, I know that Wanda and Mark are attending and very excited.
Yeah, they're two of our cheerleaders, and they're going to be really a tremendous force here. We really appreciate it.
It'll be fun. So, Dr. Weiss, before we let you go, I have one more question, if you don't mind. Have you ever worked with anyone who has been told that they need a hip replacement because of arthritis, who has gone on to avoid that operation because of adopting a whole food plant-based lifestyle?
Commonly. And I would say more times than not. In fact, the majority of the time, when somebody comes with us who is already scheduled for a knee or a hip total joint replacement, if they adopt really a high level diet of whole plant foods, no nonsense, really, really consistent, they can cancel their operation. Their pains go away. Now, let me explain this. That's the reason why people want to have their joints replaced, right? They're so painful. And they're told that the joint is just destroyed. It's just bone on bone. There's no lining left. There's no cushioning. There's no cartilage. And all of that is true, but I have come to learn that the pain is not actually coming from the bone on bone. The pain is coming from inflammation from their diet. Because when we take away that inflammation with whole plant foods, their pain goes away uniformly. The plant foods don't grow new cartilage. They still have bone on bone, but they're pain-free. So I encourage your listener to definitely do that.
Yeah, I've had friends who have avoided having knee replacement after going whole food plant-based.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
It is.
What about sprouting? Doing our own sprouting at home, sprouting seeds.
I think that's wonderful. Yeah. When you have to remember, when you sprout, when you take a look at a seed, and whether it's a bean or whether it's a broccoli seed that you're trying to sprout, the seed is Mother Nature's perfect package of nutrition to start this new being off on life, all by itself, right? It's not attached to an umbilical cord like human babies, like we're growing via the mother. This seed is just detached, lying inert and waiting for its chance. So it's packed with all these nutrients. When you sprout it, in other words, give it warmth and water and the right conditions so it can send out a shoot, those nutrients have an explosion, a liberation into being. They're unpackaged and they end up going into the shoot and into the root, because you have to remember, in those early stages, the plant it doesn't have the ability, it doesn't have really a root system yet to absorb stuff from the soil matrix. And so these nutrients, sometimes it's been found sprouted seeds can have like 10 times the nutrient concentration of the seed as if you eat it just non-sprouted. So absolutely, I think it's a good idea that you're sprouting the seed.
Great. I love sprouting, and I find when I add those to my meals, they're just super filling and satisfying, and
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Great. Please do so.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I can't thank you enough for giving us an hour of your precious time today. It's been very educational. Lots of great comments in the chat about the information that you've shared. You've certainly given us all a lot to think about when we think about our food. And in the article that you wrote for the NHA's Health Science magazine, you said, what can you do to help? 3 times a day, think about what's on the end of your fork.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's the best thing we can all do. And if you think about what we talked about today and try to transition to plants, it's the most important thing we can do for food security, security of our world, and for our future generations, and for our own health.
Yeah.
Plants on the end of our fork.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Weiss. I hope that I get to meet you in person one day, perhaps at the NHA conference.
Oh, I sure hope so.
And I hoped I get to come and visit your farm one day as well.
You're always welcome, Tami.
Thank you so
for
much.
having me.
It was our pleasure. Live well.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for watching today. So I want to give you a heads up about next week. Next Thursday, we will have Dr. Greger on our show. And with his busy schedule, you go for Dr. Greger's time. He is coming on at 1:30 in the afternoon. That would be 1:30 Pacific time, and that would be 4:30 Eastern time. And we will have him for 30 minutes. And then after he leaves, then we'll do a 30 minutes of Q&A where we will attempt to answer your whole food plant-based questions. So we will, if you are a subscriber of Nutmeg Notebook, you can go to nutmegnotebook.com if you're not, and subscribe, and that will get you on our newsletter email, and Tom will send out a reminder the day day before to remind you that we will be at a different time. So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you to Tiffany and Jesse for helping to moderate the chat feed for us today. We really appreciate that. And I hope you have a beautiful week, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Okay, we can talk.
Okay, now